And welcome. Welcome to, I like that music. Welcome to the Scientology Money Project on YouTube. And I got a story. I didn't promote this. I didn't want to give too much promotion on this particular story because it's fresh. It's fresh, and I just didn't want to give advance notice. So this is I only announced the show. I mean, maybe a half hour ago, because it's. I just didn't want. This is one of those things I didn't want to have OSED have a lot of warning about, and some other people as well. So basically, hey, I want to greet everyone. Clearwater Chad, I know, Chad. And by the way, Chad, while I have you on, I think E. Stuart Mills and you should, you're killing it in some of your stuff you do. So I think you and E. Stuart Mills should do a live. Are you up for it, Chad? Are you there? Let me know, and I'll put it in my schedule. I'm liking Chad's satire. He's like, you get. I mean, I really get Chad. Yeah, hit that like button. Hit it. And hi, Joe. Welcome to the chat, mods. And this is oh, good. I'm glad you're here. One love 51,000. And hello, Denise. Wayne's World. Always glad to have you here. So I didn't do a lot of advance notice because this will be like a replay, and I have reasons. But basically, let's summarize. Scientologist David Gentile and his non-Scientologist co-defendant Jeffry Schneider were convicted last week in federal court, Eastern District of New York. And I got to tell you, Artie McConnell and his team did a great job. It was, of course, led by U.S. Attorney Breon Peace, and they just crushed it. There was so much evidence. It was amazing performance. It's the way the law is supposed to work. And as a consequence, David Gentile and Jeffrey Schneider are now facing up to 20 years in federal prison, 240 months. Now, there's some fallout from this. And hello, Janelle H. How are you? I was on the phone, like journalists from all over were calling me. And so there's going to be fallout. Because once you're convicted, unlike the Masterson case where he's handcuffed and taken to prison, in a white-collar crime, it's a little bit different. Gentile is still out on bail. He's convicted. Sentencing is October 28, I believe. And hello, Albert 420 Wax. That's a good look. Wow, I like that look. So what are you convicted of? Securities fraud, wire fraud, basically. And for those new people I'm watching, GPB Capital Holdings was a company started in 2013 by Scientologist David Gentile, Jeffrey Schneider, who was a broker, and Jeff Lash, who was a car guy. And they were a private equity firm, private equity, New York City, which, as I've reiterated many times over, private equity, it has been said, is where money goes to die. Private equity simply means you're investing in a privately held company. So unlike an Amazon, if you buy Amazon or NVIDIA or whatever, you can buy the stock one day and sell it the next. Private equity is illiquid. It's like Grant Cardone locks up your money for 8 to 10 years. You don't get it. So that's why it's called an illiquid investment. There's no liquidity. And with today's market, I jumped out last week, and I didn't get hurt today. I wanted to go back into cash for a while, and so I did pretty good. But I've been following tech. But I heard, I thought there was going to be profit taking because the market was too high. But I'm going to go back in on certain tech stocks if they go low enough. Hold on, I'm fidgeting. Let me get my. It's so hot here in Los Angeles. Okay, so go back, and I'm going to jump around. Okay, so to answer the question, they were charged with stock fraud and wire fraud. Mr. Gentile was charged with 5 counts, 5 felonies. Gentile with 4. The jury took this was a trial that lasted 7 weeks. And the government presented a complex case in a way that a jury could follow it. And these were a good jury. And so after 7 weeks of the government putting on witnesses, I mean, these were former employees, C-suite level employees, and they didn't even present everything they had. And so the government presents a very extensive case for about 7 weeks. Neither Gentile nor Schneider testified on their own behalf. Their case only lasted 3 days, and then they rested. The jury got the case and deliberated, from what I understand, 4 hours, and they came back guilty on all counts. So when a jury comes back in 4 hours guilty on all counts, it was an open and shut case. Now, as I was asked what I think happens next, well, I expect Gentile and Schneider's legal teams, they have different law firms representing them, but I expect them to file a motion to set aside the verdict, which I think Judge Kovner will laugh at and just dismiss it. So that's what I expect them to do, and I'm going to show you some interesting behind-the-scenes stuff. So anyway, private equities fraud is rife. It's and specifically they were, and this is, people will know this if you've been following, but if you haven't, I'll catch you up. GPB Capital engaged in a Ponzi-like scheme to defraud investors, and they used backdated performance guarantees. But the difference between, as I explained in my last podcast, the difference between a Ponzi scheme and a Ponzi-like scheme is important to understand. This was a Ponzi-like scheme. So in a regular Ponzi scheme, no assets are ever purchased. The Ponzi schemer, like Reed Slatkin, just takes your money, and when he gets new investors in, he will give the old investors money, and they brag about it, and it's a pyramid scheme until it collapses, as all Ponzi schemes must. Bernie Madoff's went on a long time. That was an affinity fraud where he preyed on his own community, his own people, and then they in turn tell other people. In this case, a Ponzi-like scheme is where a company actually buys assets, but these assets don't perform to target, and yet they promised 8% distributions, so they have to pay investors their distributions out of new investor money to keep it going. And this is really an interesting part of the case. This is where a lot of people begin their criminal activity. They raise money, their numbers don't come in, so they cook the books. In this case, they papered over their losses. They had Jeff Lash basically put in some performance guarantees or IOUs, and then they booked that as revenue. And that's part of the fraud. And he transferred in some of his own personal money, which David Gentile booked as earned income, which is a wire fraud. So it always starts, you don't make enough money. But here's a couple things. They had 15,000 investors. They raised $1.7 billion. So that was the size and scope of the fraud, enormous fraud. And they started getting in trouble when they couldn't fill out a mandated SEC requirement. And then it was announced that their 2015, 2016, their filed financials with the SEC could not be relied upon. And then they were sued by the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. Letitia James sued them, as did, I think, 6 other states' attorneys general. So, and then a lot of law firms that specialize in private equity sued them. So there's a mountain of civil cases, and they were all stayed pending the criminal case. Okay, so I hope that gives you an idea. So they were just convicted. Okay, where did the billion go? Okay, and this is a good question and answer. They raised 1.7 billion, and at some point, 2021, because of the criminal charges, the government went into court and basically put GPB Capital Holdings into a monitorship. So Joseph Gardamal, who he works for Alvarez and Marsal in Washington, D.C., he took over running the company as the monitor. So where did the money go? That's part of what we're going to talk about today. That's part of, because they start out with 1.7 billion. And when Mr. Gardamal took over, I think they have about 1.1 billion. So the money, here's how the fraud began. Jeffrey Schneider was a broker. And if you look at his FINRA broker sheet, FINRA, you can just type in FINRA broker check, Jeffrey Schneider. He spells his name Jeffry. He lost the E in Jeffrey, which I'm a Jeffrey. How do you lose an E? Or maybe he wanted his name to stand out. But I'll tell you this, as a private investigator, when you do something like that, when you have a distinctive name, it's really easy to search you. It's like if you have a name like Robert Greene, there's a million Robert Greenes, or Teresa Green. Those names are hard to find, but when you have an unusual name, like say, I don't know, David Miscavige, it's easy to search. So Jeffrey Schneider should have kept the E in the name. But anyway, so here's how the premise began. They promised investors an 8% return on capital. So they would get 8%. And they were going to buy car dealerships and make money and give you a guaranteed 8%. Now, in the zero interest environment of the 2010s, that was attractive because the banks were paying zero interest. Remember before inflation started and interest climbing? Gentile is a traditional mob name in South Italy. Let's go to Sicily. Okay. And my audience is so good. You know where I'm going with part of this, but not all of it. Not all of it, because I'm wily. I'm old and I'm treacherous. And as I've said before, age and treachery will always defeat youth and beauty. Keep that in mind. Keep that in mind. And also, if you want to look authoritative, you shouldn't have long hair like me. You should wear suits and glasses. You should wear glasses. Glasses were always used in commercials when I was growing up. This was an old thing when they were advertising. It would go like, 4 out of 5 doctors recommend. So you'd have a guy playing a doctor, but he'd wearing glasses because the taking off of glasses seems authoritative. As your doctor, I have to tell you, or whatever, it's like, as the president of the United States, I'm concerned about the socioeconomic client of Nebraska, whatever. But it's always a good move to do that. Keep that in mind, Chad, because you and E. Stuart Mills are going to. So let's go back. Okay. So GPB Capital offered an 8% return, but they also paid a high commission to broker dealers. Broker dealers are companies that sell private equity investments. And if you watch Glengarry Glen Ross, they were selling land, but it's the same kind of boiler room thing. So if you run a private equity company, I don't have a pipe possibly troubled. Yes, I would like to. I need to get a pipe. It's hard to find one. I like a nice Meerschaum pipe, and I'm not going to buy a used one because you never know what's been smoked in it, or who smoked it. So they offered the broker dealer network high commissions, like 5 to 8% commission to sell their paper. So having been in sales 30 years, I can tell you, if time is your only asset, that's all anyone has. So if I can go out after $1 million in business, it takes as much work as 100,000. So I'm obviously going to go after the $1 million because I can make more money. That's how capitalism works. If you work in your own self-interest, everyone benefits. So if I spend my time going after $1 million piece of business, I'll benefit from a higher commission. My company will benefit from higher sales, and the stock of the company, if all the salespeople act in their own best interest, then the company benefits and the shareholders benefit. The factories benefit because they have more. They're going to get greater economies of scale, and so on. Okay. The broker dealers just type in GPB Capital broker dealers, and you will see a sad and sorry list of some companies went out of business. Some paid gigantic fines to FINRA for selling GPB Capital. So I can't name them off the top of my head. I know the law firms who went after them. So how to honeydew to finish? Yes, well, good. I understand that. And so here's the net effect of offering broker dealers a higher commission to push your product over other products. The broker dealers are going to preferentially push your products. They're going to make more money. But because you're promising 8% commission, your upfront costs are a lot higher. Now, I calculated, I have it on my blog. If you invested $1, you automatically took about a 12% to 14% haircut because GPB charged management fees and excessive management fees. They pay their broker dealer networks excessively high commissions. So you already were out about 14%. The real number is probably 18 to 22%, depending how you crunch it, because there were other fees. And so the whole thing was designed so that Jeffry, Schneider, and David Gentile could collect maximum management fees and other fees. They were taking fees everywhere. So, and then when they had to pay the 8% commission and the car dealerships they purchased weren't making it, Jeffry Schneider in the evidence, he said, we have to man up and write some checks, meaning we have to go into Ponzi scheme territory. He put that in writing. And he also used his private Gmail. He told people, I don't want FINRA monitoring. FINRA's monitors stockbrokers and broker dealers. You can go to FINRA. And he said, I don't want FINRA checking it. So there was a lot of criminality from the inset. Here's something that happens, you can't unrob a bank. So in other words, if you rob a bank, you've committed a felony bank robbery. You can't go back into the bank and say, here's your money back and have it all be equal. You can't be. In court, Schneider and Gentile tried to argue that there was still money, that all the money wasn't lost and there really wasn't a crime committed, but there was. It all has to do with intent. The government showed they intended to defraud people by signing backdated documents, by lying in their accounting, and by doing a lot of things. So that's it in a nutshell. When you get in way over your head and you overpromise and underdeliver, you either have to tell your investors the truth, say, look, we didn't make our numbers, we're not paying distributions, or you take new investor money and you go into a Ponzi mode, and that's what happened in a nutshell. So, but the outcome is they're looking at 20 years in prison. But David Gentile, here's the thing about private equity. It's like a Scientology contract. When you sign a contract in private equity, you agree to go into binding arbitration. And in every private equity contract I've ever looked at, you agree to indemnify the general manager or the owner or owners. You agree to indemnify them against any losses, including negligence. Negligence, you don't get your money back. And you agree to pay their legal fees if they get in trouble. And that's what happened in GPB Capital. And the investors agreed to pay their legal fees in the fine print. And it's like signing a cell phone contract, except you're handing over $100,000. I think that 15,000 investors with an average $120,000 investment, more or less. I'm just averaging out, but it was a lot of retired people, older people. And so, but they agreed to indemnify them. And there was a lot more money than you think. Before I reveal how much they spent, I just want to show you a couple things to kind of show you how I covered the story. And I want to set the stage before I tell you how much was spent. If you're familiar with Pacer, that's where you create a Pacer account and you can go get legal filings. So let's go to Pacer, because I was on Pacer all the time. and I was getting, let me see, is this it? No, I was on Pacer all the time getting every legal document in this case. And I need, okay, here it is. Okay, we're going to go to Pacer and we're going to go down to the bottom, scroll down. Okay, so on Pacer, okay, and do I need to make that bigger? Okay, basically, this is when you log on to Pacer. It's a government system, and it's publicly available. And there's some, you have to. There's some things you sign to get an account, but this is part of open source intelligence. And this is one way to get information is from Pacer, and knowledge is power. Okay, so if you look at the bottom on January 29, 2021, the indictment, the sealed indictment was handed down. Yeah, no kidding, man, Tina. Yes, Pacer is. So they robbed the people that made them pay for the defense? Well, no. And I'll tell you why. And it's part of why I would never invest in private equity. Okay, no, technically, no. And this is why you need to read contracts or have your lawyer. Okay, this is the Pacer account. Now, I'd been covering this since 2019. A commenter made, but because I researched it back to the 90s, it seemed like I'd been covering it longer, but I think 2019, 2018. So, okay, so here's what I want to show you what happens in a case. So both sides file motions and they're numbered in blue. And that's the best way to find it. They'll refer to like 17 with the case number. So they'll have a case number and then they, like here, order setting conditions of release. That was when Gentile and Schneider made bail, and there's certain things they cannot do because they were criminally arrested, so they had to make bail. And I think they were both $50,000 bail, and then they were arraigned. And you can get all these and post them as PDFs on your blog or use them on your YouTube channel. So they have status conferences. So we're up to 28 documents. Okay, so the pandemic obviously affected this. David Gentile wanted to take a trip somewhere, so they allowed him to leave the country. That's modified conditions of release. He took a trip somewhere and they let him go out, but it's, you got to submit, he's not a flight risk because he has a family, and they make that kind of argument. So you're going through all these documents through 2021. You can see how much legal work. So David Gentile and Jeffry Schneider were paying huge amounts of money to get all this legal work done. And now we're going to jump over. We're going to come back here. We're going to come back to Pacer. And so I want to stop sharing this. Okay, so they were spending huge amounts of money. And when Joseph Gardemall came aboard, he wanted to have the investor money stop paying their legal expenses. Exteriorization makes him a flight risk. That's true, Adam. As a Scientologist, he could have exteriorized to Target 2 to be with Ron. But see, the WOG court system doesn't take that into account. And he never used, he never used his superpowers. Okay, so here's what happened, and this is my newest blog post that I put up. I just posted it because I didn't want anyone to get it because it has. Okay, so I'm going to share this screen, and I'm going to show you who really won. Okay, the lawyers are the big winners in GPB Capital. That's the truth. The lawyers are the big winners. And here I have, they were swimming in money. Okay, what happened is Joseph Gardemall is monitored, and I really like Mr. Gardemall. He's a combat veteran. He's won the Bronze Star, and he served our country. Thank you for your service, Mr. Gardemall. And he served in Iraq, won the Bronze Star. He's a CPA, a forensic fraud expert. So opposing Mr. Gardemall and the government there were these two law firms, Cobra and Kim, and then Art, Fox and Schiff. And here's what stood out to me. Mr. Gardermal just filed his quarterly report. I have it as a monthly report, but it's quarterly for July 2024. And this little thing buried on page 32 or 36, this is it. Legal and other indemnified fees, and that means they have to pay, totaled $108 million. How did that happen? Well, let's go to this. I covered in December 19th, 2022, both Schneider and Gentile sued in the Chancery Court of Delaware. And as I say in that article, in the Kafkaesque world of private equity, owners and partners can be criminally charged, and yet the shareholders are legally obligated to pay the legal bills. This is due to the many self-serving clauses deeply embedded within the fine print in the investment documents signed by often unsophisticated investors. So the Chancery Court of Delaware ordered the investors to pay. And this is how much they spent. And this was for not just the civil lawsuits filed by private equity, law firms who specialize in that space, but U.S. states attorneys general, and finally the criminal. But look at this. Indemnified fees, they call them. Yeah, they were required by law. You sign a contract, it's a license for them to write blank checks. So the criminal defendants, David Gentile and Jeffrey Schneider, they spent $17.9 million in 2021. Now, some of this is related to GPB Capital, some of the assets, but all of it basically is for legal bills for things caused by Schneider and Gentile and them being sued. David Gentile actually owned the firm GPB Capital. Jeffrey Schneider owned Ascendant Capital, which sold the paper, but for all intents and purposes, they're a criminal organization operating together. So let's call it $18 million in 2021. But then it increases to $26.1 million in 2022, $35 million in 2023 as they headed toward criminal trial. And this year, through the first two quarters, $29.8 million, call it $30 million, as they were heading into criminal trial. So they spent $100.18 million, and they wound up being convicted in federal court. Now, that money came out of investors' pockets. Now, there's going to be maybe a silver lining. Wow, Gentile sure got his money worth. Yeah, no refunds. Well, hold on. Is there any other fraud that he committed? Yes, there's many other frauds, but sometimes, let me jump off the screen. I'm going to go back to it. Sometimes the case, look, the government, when they raided GPB Capital Holdings and its waste management component, Armada Waste Management, or it was then 5-star, what the government did, my opinion, court watching, there was so much more they could have charged them with. But this is where I think Eastern District, New York prosecutors, Breon Pease and his team, Artie McConnell, the whole team, Jennifer Riker of the FBI. What you do when you have a big case where you could charge like 100 crimes, you don't do that, because that would confuse a jury and lose them if you charge them with everything they did. So what you do is you get, in the case of David Gentile, you get 5 charges, which you can absolutely win 99.9%, and they charge Schneider with 4. So what you want to do is you want to convict them. You don't want to confuse the jury, and you don't want a 2-year trial with 100 charges. So you realistically get a very potent case with witnesses, eyewitnesses who were there, and you build a powerful case. And that's why Eastern District, Southern District, in New York, they get 99% conviction rates. And most people that Southern District and Eastern District go after. In fact, most federal court districts, when they charge, they've got a case. They have a pretty bulletproof case. Not always, but generally. But by the time the defendants see the weight of the evidence against them, they'll make a plea deal because the evidence, they'll be destroyed in court and they don't want to testify. That's what Jeff Lash, who was the other person indicted, he made a plea deal. He was smart. Now, he had to sign a forfeiture agreement for $3.2 million. So a couple things will happen. Lash was smart, but he had to allocute and testify in court, which he did. So I don't think he'll serve his whole sentence because of his cooperation and contrition. Courts will weigh that at sentencing. When Gentile and Schneider try to get a sentence reduction of 240 months, the court's going to look at them spending $108 million in legal fees, burning up incinerating investor money, having no contrition. In fact, David Gentile tried to hijack his company in 2022. He tried to use his Scientology buddy, Matt Judkin, and two of his other buddies to take the company over, even though he'd stepped down as CEO. Well, the investors have to pay their legal bills for their appeals. I'm not a lawyer, but there are law firms that take contingency, and they're going to distribute money back to investors. So they're going to recover something. So once all the money's gone, you can't get blood out of a turnip. So there are lawsuits, and what will happen, and I'm getting ahead of things, but when David Gentile tried to take over his company, seized control of it because he saw that $1.1 billion pool of money sitting there, and he hasn't been convicted. He wanted the control of it. Joseph Gardemal, the monitor, went into court and got it converted to a receivership. Gentile and Schneider sued. The court stayed it because they hadn't been convicted. Okay? So I think the court had to balance issues, and they said, okay, we'll taking it over, and the fact that they're have been arrested, they're not guilty and they haven't been convicted. So we're going to leave the order that a lower court issued to convert to receivership. We're going to stay that until the outcome of the trial. So I think it's the Second Circuit. I think they will convert it to a receivership. So yeah, to go back to this, is there any other fraud they committed? Yes, there's a lot of frauds they committed. But the government wants to economize. So the government doesn't want to pay for, like I said, a 2-year trial. So they only need to convict them on, you're not going to beat 4 charges. You're not going to beat, Gentile got convicted of 5. You're not going to beat those. They're not. I expect them to try everything in the book to get out of it, but that's not going to do it, because what will happen as soon as it gets converted to a receivership, all the monopoly money belonging to the investors ends. So I'm going to show you what Mr. Gardemal's report looks like, because I'm kind of trying to explain how the fraud works. Now, Scientology was aware of this because I've counted now 25 Scientologists who were involved in GPB Capital in one way or another, including Scientologists who sold their boiler room operations were maybe worth $2 million for $10 million, whatever. And there's going to be clawback. There's going to be clawback from people who received money. And in the Bernie Madoff fraud, some of the early investors, I was reading a story about one older lady. She received like $7,000 return early in the Madoff fraud, and that was clawed back. The government took it as the proceeds of crime. Hello, adorable anarchy. Good to see you here. So what will happen is there's going to be clawback, and how deeply that, donations to the Church of Scientology. In the Reed Slacking case, the church gave back $3.25 million that Slacking had donated to Scientology and its front groups, and they fought some of it. So the conviction triggers a cascade of things. So it's going to go into receivership. Money will start being returned to investors. And a question someone asked me, and I'm just speculating in the abstract, okay? David Gentile is 58, and he'll do all 240 months. Assuming he does all 240 months, he'll get out when he's 78. I mean, he could die in prison. So he didn't do a plea deal like Jeff Lash, and who I think got 10 years, but I think they're going to cut his sentence. And like I'm not a lawyer, so I'm just talking about from cases I've read that are comparable. I thought Lash and Gentile were actually looking at a lot more time. I thought they were looking at 50 years because there was a $1.5 billion fraud out here in LA where the criminal got 50 years. So it's a different case, but the press release from the DOJ said they're looking at up to 20 years. So there's a sentencing formula, and the conviction and returning investor money is the higher good than putting them away for 50 years. Because when you're 58, 20 years in prison, so does Gentile and Schneider, do they have anything to bargain with? Like, because the feds might say, well, you want time off your sentence. What do you got to give us? Anything? Anything in the mob, the Russians, any of your partners out there in the broker dealership network? Anything on Prestiano? I mean, now the power balance has changed. Dave should have hired Rick. God. Yeah, Rick Moxon and Blinky. Blinky, I think that night, Moxon, no, I wouldn't hire him to fight a traffic ticket. And look, Rick Moxon, I wouldn't hire you to fight a traffic ticket, but then you wouldn't take me as a client either. So we're even. Okay. We're fine. And I don't care what stories your wife tells at the Rotary. I mean, they're creative. Okay. So, Blinky, her husband, Jerry Pfeffer, was at Williams and Connolly. He was one of the top white collar criminal lawyers. I don't think Blinky does this kind of securities fraud stuff, but she's a good attorney if you're a cult. I'd hire her. Like if I were starting a new cult, but I think at her age, she's probably going to retire. And David Miscavige I think he has a panic button that goes right to Monique. There's a red phone. So anyway, now see, just talking, I lose my train of thought because there's so much going on. Oh, I'm going to show you the Mr. Gardemo's document, the official document that goes on. So now we know they spent $108 million. Now, the point I was going to make, this was a $1.5 million fraud, and they spent $108 million over a couple of years. And can you imagine my point I want to make? He said, how much Scientology spends each month on legal. If these two shitbird felons, and I can call them felons now because they are convicted, so they're felons. If these two shitbirds, and I would have given 100-year or 5 life sentences. I would have, like, if I were the Emperor Xenu, they would have gotten like 5 consecutive life sentences. So they would have, dropped the body, reincarnated, went to jail. I would have given them 5 concurrent life sentences, 5 lifetimes, if this were the Galactic Confederation. But it's not. And federal prison's a real thing. And I don't think they're going to go to Camp Fed and rake leaves. I don't know. So anyway, so let's go back. There's so much material here. Let me go back to my blogs. I condensed some of it. And okay. Now where I put that the lawyers are the big winners. Yeah. The lawyers cleaned up. And I showed you, and you can read this is my newest blog post, Swimming in Money. Oh, which yacht do I buy? Do I buy the 60-foot Bertram or do I go for the 75-foot? I mean, so this term I have, remove term, look at it. Gentile and Schneider post-conviction outcomes. I just have to edit that remove term. That was a thing in the panel. But yeah, the lawyers are swimming in money. Now, is it right for lawyers? Should they have told their client, hey, maybe you should proffer and take a deal? This is not winnable. Well, they may have told him that. I don't know. But Gentile and Schneider, uh, they might have been very much of the mind of going to, oops, did I drop off? Where am I? Hold on. I'm sorry. It looks like, oh, I think I had a drop. I think I had a drop. Hold on. Hold on. Oh, I see. I see what happened. Okay. I'm back on. I had I'm going through so many windows. I had to do LRH. I'd say, I was in a StreamYard in the Van Allen radiation belt, and I had a change of space process. I was up there looking at Nova Scotia and such, and I had a change of space process. So that's what happened. No, I had StreamYard open. Okay, I want to go back to show you how did they spend. Your mustache is missing. What? Honey, where did my mustache go? No, I just got tired. Woke up and said I need to change. Have you ever like woke up and like I got to change? Like I might cut my hair, but I don't know. Let's take a vote. One, if I should cut my hair. Two, if no, I don't know. His blood charge. My computer is. If they had quit when the fraud was small, it would have been fine. The courts aren't hard on white collar crime. Well, that's the problem is if you're greedy and you think you're the smartest man in the room like they do, no, keep the hair. That's what I'm thinking. Yeah, I have this like opportunity to do something, but yeah, I think like I will keep the hair because thank you. Glad. And then maybe, but I am going to get some glasses. I'm going to get some I am going to get some new glasses because my prescription changed. You know that thing that happens where you need new glasses. So, but I'm not getting these kind. But if I put my hair up, it re-stimulates me on my time in my corporate track, to put it in Sino terms. Why not? It'll grow back. But I don't know. So, a pipe. 3 out of 4 doctors who smoke Camels. They used to have those ads. Okay, but enough of this so I want to go back to Pacer because I'm going to show you where you ask Jeffrey Augustine, how could they spend 108 million? Well, I'm going to proceed forthwith to show you how you can incinerate $108 million in investment. Okay, so I'm following the case, and you can see the numbers. We're going up to 127 documents by 2022. And the documents keep climbing because Schneider and Gentile are wallpapering the court, and then the government has to answer back. Here's a number 150, a motion to suppress. Wait, we don't want that. We don't want that evidence in court. These whiny bitches, Schneider and Gentile were trying to suppress everything, which would make them suppressive persons by definition, at least relative to evidence. So this thing, like I'm spending money like crazy because you got to pay for these documents, and some of them have attachments, and they go like 80 to 120 pages, and you rock that corporate look. Yeah, you know what? I'll go back and look at it. So the county should demand the exorbitant legal fees be fully disclosed. Well, when private equity, you don't have to, but Joseph Gardamal did have an accounting once the monitor came in. I don't think they overpaid. I'm going to show you why. PD, I can understand why it seems like they might have laundered it, but there's not laundering because there was a monitor in place named Joseph Gardamal, who's a ball buster, and he is absolutely granite. You're not going to get past him. He's like this guy Gardamal. No, you're not going to get past him. In fact, he made it rough very rough on these two now convicted felons. Okay, so I'm following this case over time, writing on my blog. We're in 2022. Now we go to 2023, and you can see the money you have to pay. Now, there's a motion for forfeiture of property. Ooh, they wanted something forfeited. And then there's a seizure warrant returned executed. And when you go on Pacer, you just click these. And let's just see this for a minute. Okay, so motion, and I have to fill out everything. I'm not going to show it to you, but there's an account, and you basically, oh, I'm lost. Shoot. Okay, so log in. Okay, so, oh gosh, I've lost this. Let me log back in. Okay, so you have an account, and I don't care. People see it. I have attorneys and things like that, and it's published. But you can't get, if you use this, it's a felony. So let me stop sharing and log back on. I want to see what they were seized. I must have missed that. So let me log out and log in. Okay, so we're up into the hundreds of documents. And when you log in, I want to go back into, let me share this. Because I'm going to show you how to use this. Share screen. We're back on Pacer. You have to follow me. I have good information, but like I'm not as smooth and polished as other people on the internet, on YouTube. Okay, so this is U.S. District Court, Eastern District of New York. So you always have to know the court. And when you query, this is how you go. You go query. And in this case, all I do is I put in Gentile and David, run query. Okay, so, and it's going to show you, okay, when you go on, it's going to show you that David has civil and criminal, and we're going to go to the top one. And so these are all the cases against Gentile. So when you search this, we're going to go back to USA v. Gentile, and you go to history documents. We're going to go for most recent date first. And what's happening is we were down, oh gosh. So you can see now let's just pick a date. Okay, so the trial's starting in, I believe it started on June 2024. And motion to unseal document. You can start seeing in May of 2024, a month before the trial, there was this blizzard where Gentile and Schneider were like motion to quash, motion to exclude. So the attorneys were arguing, these are motions in limine before trial of what could be let in. And these don't concern the jury, but you can see that the documents are climbing to 329, 333, and these have a lot of pages. And so I'm reading everything and saving it. And there's voir dire, that's jury selection. And they discuss what you can say to the jury when you're picking. But look at that. And these are two different legal firms with multiple lawyers. I think David Gentile had 4 attorneys or lawyers, and I think Schneider had an equal amount. Motion for file. So anyway, you can see all of these motions going. Okay, so let's get a baseline. The trial, I believe, starts on 6/24 at document 349. Then you can see the documents just climb. So while the jury's not there, the judge will come in the morning, the jury's not there, and she will hear all the motions and decide on them. And this happened in the Masterson case. You do kind of housekeeping. I'll allow this in. I won't allow that in. The government at one point said we don't need Schneider's emails when we raided his computers and got everything. We don't need everything. So there's some sealed stuff I can't get yet. And you can see during the pendency of the trial, Gentile and Schneider's lawyers were fighting like crazy just to try to keep evidence out of the courtroom. And look at that. It just goes on and on and on. Now we're up to 381. This is how you run up the big money, because during the trial, your lawyers are literally could be working 16, 18-hour days. And the same with the government lawyers. They're going back and forth because they have to do this after the jury's gone evenings. But look at the number. It just keeps climbing and climbing and climbing during the trial. And the court is noting every day that the jury trial is going on, and then order on motion for reconsideration. Schneider got told no to something, so that they couldn't use his Gmails, I think, and he wanted that reconsidered. Order on motion to exclude. So they'll file letters and ask the judge to do things, and she will rule on it. And this is how you kind of follow a trial. I couldn't be there in the courtroom in Brooklyn. My private jet, of course, I had it out on loan. Because I'll do that. If you need to borrow my private jet, just let me know. Just pay for gas, and you can borrow it. It comes from Russia, so it may not be the best condition, and you have to sign a release and everything. But I think it flies most of the time. It's the world's only private jet where everyone has to wear parachutes. Okay. And it was old. It was built in 1942 during the war. So you just jump out of the door and slide off the wing. Okay, see, so 406 documents. And the reason I'm dragging this out is to show you how you spend so much money in criminal trial. When you've got 9 lawyers between Schneider and Gentile, had 9 lawyers between them, plus paralegals, plus transcriptionists, plus, everything. Look at that. How high do you think it goes? We're only at like July 8th. And there's an order. So they're still fighting, and they're fighting all the way up to the end. And look at that. Okay, how high do we go? This is all burning up these are all $1,000 an hour lawyers. So and plus the paralegals, the support, all the documents, lawyers charge everything, and it keeps going and going. And this is how extensive the case was. Now, how high do we go? Do we go to 500? Do we get to 500 documents? Look at that. Yeah, adorable anarchy. Somebody's paralegals or law clerks are getting a workout. Oh, yeah, and they're getting cash. Yeah, the attorneys will look at them, but you got your clerks, and you got everyone. This is so much money pouring in. So we're looking at how Schneider and Gentile, they know the case. My feeling is at some point they know the case is going south and they're going to be convicted, and they're sweating. So they're going to just file every motion possible. Now we get to the jury instructions, and there were a lot of fights over the jury instructions, what the jury should and shouldn't be told. That was a big fight. And order to show cause, jury trial letter, jury notes. Look at that. Oh, look at this. This is a brand new document. Okay, so they were convicted, right, at August. I believe August 1. I believe it was August 1st. Oh, look at that. There's a new one. Order of sustenance, lodging, transportation. I have to look at that one. So 470. Oh, the jury verdict's published. We're going to get that one in. That I've been watching Pacers. So the jury verdict's just published. I'll put that on my blog. Oh, look at that. So the jury verdict just got published. Now, here is where it says terminate deadlines and hearings. So after 472 documents in several years of watching and reporting, the finality is this: terminate deadlines and hearings. Game over. You've been convicted. Sentencing is October 28th. When you read that, it's, I have to share something. When you've been following a case for a long time, and then there's finality for the investors, for the victims. 15,000 victims, many of whom passed away, and their estates are, entitled to that money. When you see the finality, like I was there in the courtroom when Masterson was pronounced guilty and handcuffed and taken away. I wish I could have been there, but I couldn't. But the finality is there. Now they're going to appeal or try to set aside, but it was pretty amazing to read that. To actually read it, it was amazing. Manuel Lubian, welcome. Former paralegal here. It's mind-boggling to even think that any judge who would review court fees and court charges would even allow something like this to continue. Well, what happened is that the Delaware Chancery Court, because GPB was incorporated in Delaware, the court ordered GPB Capital, the company, to pay the legal bills. So there's not a damn thing a judge could do. There was a court order. The contract said they were indemnified and the investors had to pay. Now, I need to talk to an expert, but I've been told by an expert in criminal law, and he's looking under the statute, that as part of their sentencing, there's going to be federal forfeiture, but there will very likely be reordered to pay the investors the $108 million in legal fees. Now, that's one possible outcome. Former paralegal and court reporter. Yeah, that's quite a job. You get to hear everything. And you get to do readbacks. Ohio. Well, that's good. I'm glad that we have so she was it is so ordered. So we have paralegals in the audience. I've had a lot of my blog, the Scientology Money Project, has got a lot of views. I mean, it's a huge number whenever I post on GPB Capital. And so I have this Scientology adjacent audience. And I was doing it for the investors, as I've always said, as a public service, because it's a Scientology story. And there were a lot of Scientologists involved. And yeah, it is. But in sentencing, they may be ordered to repay it. And we're going to see what happens at sentencing. But it's just phenomenal to see. Now, I'm going to take this off screen for a minute. Just let me take the screen off a minute. And if you will indulge me and wait, just chat. Well, I want to look at the jury verdict. Let me download that before. Oh, wow. Let me see this. Sure. Oh, wow. Oh, yes. Yes. Okay. Here's what it looks like, folks. And you're seeing it here. Okay. This is an exciting part of Scientology Money Project. This is, for those of you who haven't seen it, I know that Adorable Anarchy and Manuel Lubian will see it. I got to share this with you. Let's just take like a victory lap over these guys who ripped off so many seniors. Okay, this is it. This is the jury verdict. I'm going to enlarge it. This is what it looks like. Verdict sheet. This is verdict sheet, and this is defendant Jeffry Schneider. Count 1, count charging conspiracy to commit securities fraud, guilty. 2, count charging conspiracy to commit wire fraud. And look, it says, with respect to count 2 of the indictment, we, the jury, unanimously find the defendant, Jeffry Schneider, guilty. And count 3, we find the defendant guilty of securities fraud. Look at that. Signed by the foreperson. I thought he had 4 and 5, but we're going to look at the other one. So that's the actual verdict form. Wow. That makes it very real, doesn't it? This is why I'm so heavy on documents. It's a signed verdict. It's a public document. And we're going to go look at David Gentile's jury verdict. Okay. Look at that. Jury verdict. verdict form as to David Gentile. Count charging conspiracy to commit securities fraud. With respect to count one of the indictment, we, the jury, unanimously find the defendant, David Gentile, guilty. Count 2, conspiracy to commit wire fraud, guilty. Count charging securities fraud, guilty. Count 4, counts charging wire fraud, that was 2 counts, guilty. Count 5, David Gentile, guilty. So it looks like Schneider got 3, Gentile got 2, unless I misread them. Signed by the jury foreperson. Wow, that's the actual verdict sheet. And one thing you can do, you look at the top header. Okay, this is the case number. Whenever you look at a legal case, you want to get the case number if you go to Pacer. This is document 472, the date of filing 8-1, so they were convicted on 8-1. And so this is an important thing. I will put it up on my blog. I have Joseph Gardamal's report where it shows that they spent $108.8 million. I'm glad I got to share this with you because that wasn't published this morning. And so that's terrific. And I want to see so there's jury notes, and we'll look at that later. I think I'm going to do you guys want to look at the jury notes? You guys want to hang around, you paralegals? Do you want me to open jury notes? Put yes, yes, 1. You guys want me to open jury notes and see what's in there? Okay. Wow. Okay, so we're going to have, I guess we don't want to look at it right now. Let me come back on this way. Okay, so you guys want to see the jury notes? I don't know what's on there. I would like to see it. Okay, if you don't mind, because this is real time. We get to see stuff. And it's not everyone's cup of tea, but to me, it's completely fascinating. Okay, thank you. Thank you. I'm glad I have my community. So let's go back and see this thing. Let's look at the jury notes. Wow. You do not have permission to view this document. So right now the jury notes are sealed. Well, I would like to see them, but we don't get to see them. But we did see now see, what's this order of sustenance, lodging, transportation? 1 page. Let's see what it's about. Okay. Look at that. So this was the United States Marshal Service shall provide sustenance to the 12 jurors and 1 alternate. Okay, so this was while they were deliberating. This was the court ordering the marshals to pay for their meals while they were deliberating. So again, you can see how formal and documented everything is. And that's how you spend. And now there's the civil cases. Like I said, there's 8 states, I believe, a whole bunch of law firms. That, folks, is how you spend $108.8 million over 4 years defending an onslaught of lawsuits because you're a criminal. And they're usually sealed. Do you mean the jury verdict sheets? Well, they were open publicly on Pacer, and yeah. So, but that's something to have. So it's definitive. It's in writing. Has Ken Delusion issued a statement? For those of you who don't know, Ken Delusion is the official spokesman of the Church of Scientology. He would see, what would Ken Delusion? He'd say, David Gentile, he did a few online courses many years ago, and I believe he was a Long Island. He was in the Long Island org. And the Long Island org is quite downstat, and he failed his basic comm course, and so he was expelled for conduct unbecoming a pre-clear. I mean, they're going to issue some you know what? The Church of Scientology has not issued any statement, but what did happen is, if you remember when Scientology bought that $100 million group of properties, and they paid over market in Clearwater, downtown Clearwater. And you remember that? I put a post on my blog saying, did that $100 million come from David Gentile and GPB Capital? Because where would $100 million come from? And the church shop, Tracy McManus asked the church, did it come from David Gentile's money? They knew at that point, and this was a test. The church knew he was a crim. They already knew. They already knew it. And the church shot back to Tracy and said, no, it didn't come from David Gentile. They wanted to distance themselves. But for me, as an open source intelligence, it told me that they knew he was guilty and he had done stuff because their denial was so fast. They like issued a terse denial. The money, and a guy named Osman Ozan, who you can check, he's Trish Duggan's money manager. It looks like the money came from Trish Duggan. Osman Ozan is one of the most powerful Scientologists you've never heard of. And I've done an article of him on my blog. I saw him on, he did a YouTube video where he was talking about part of his investment was in video, which is good. But I know, but we need a change sometimes. You just need it. Yeah, they knew it. That's true. The church knew it. They knew that that's why they issued such a fast and terse denial when I dared to suggest that the money came from David Gentile, because David Gentile was putting up something like $100 million with the fellow Scientologist Larry Feldman in a development that was actually on a former Trump property. Trump had bought something in Tampa and torn it down, and it never fell through. So Larry Feldman's company, Feldman Equities, I think. Larry Feldman's an old school developer down there in Tampa, and he does commercial. But David was going to they had this big project called Riverwalk, and David Gentile had committed money to it. And Larry Feldman said, I know Gentile really well. He didn't mention the Scientology in a press release. And we've worked together in the past, and he became a minority partner. Riverwalk fell apart, and I think it was Two Roads picked it up. But I knew Scientology was involved because Gensler, Scientology's firm, did the plans. Not Trish Duggan again. Yeah, she could do actual good. Well, she's got a glass museum. I mean, they're in Clearwater. Doesn't her glass museum count for something? Yeah, no kidding. But I haven't conclusively proven it. But I mean, when you look at Scientologists with bags of money, it's like Bob Duggan, who seems to be at a remove from Scientology. Trish, I don't think Tom Cruise is reportedly worth $600 million. I think it's higher, but I don't know that he would throw in $100 million because he would keep his money for movies, I think. So yeah, that's how you burn through $108 million. Is you take $1.5 billion, you engage in criminality, and then because your investors are forced to pay for it, you spend all of their money. You just burn through it trying to keep your stupid criminal ass out of prison where it belongs. Do you think if any Scientology's membership knew exactly what all their money was going towards, do you think that perhaps that could turn the tide of their own internal public opinion? Well, no, because look, they've been buying ideal orgs forever. They've been buying real estate, and they know it's empty. And here's what I think. I think, and this is just my opinion, I think there's a certain myopia. I wrote a post a long time ago called Monastery Scientology, where I said, this is like 2008, Scientology is going to contract down. It's going to be PAC base here in LA, Celebrity Center, and it's going to be Flag and St. Hill. And they'll keep Copenhagen as the pub's organization, Scientology Media Productions. I think there's a certain myopia because most of the place to be is at a Flag public. And Flag's the biggest org, and that's like the glamorous place to be. That's a status thing. So I think because if you're a Flag public, I think the myopia intensifies and you're more inside the bubble at Flag. So therefore, I would qualify it by saying at Flag, no, because you're so sec checked to make sure you can stay on your solo knots, or even if you're coming up through the ranks, you still want to go to Flag for the prestige. Out here, Celebrity Center is a class 5, so it can only do up through clear. And so I think Flag as like the last bastion of Scientology. I don't think it would affect them because they believe the party line. I think it would have more of an impact on people out in the San Fernando Valley and outlying areas who are not flag publics or at flag or who don't live in Clearwater. But when you listen to some of the analysis by Aaron Smith Levin, who's organically, in Clearwater and hears things, he would have a better take on it. So David Gentile, look, if anyone, they'll call you in for a briefing. They'll say he committed crimes and he's been declared. And I had put out a podcast that Danny Masterson had been declared. Aaron differed with me, which is fine. He would know more. I would defer to his opinion. Not always, but in this particular case, because they want to keep the family in and they want to be able to visit Danny in prison. I think maybe he would still be, what is it? Criminal? Is that a type J? Is that a type J? Type J. Anyway, he would be a criminal because he's convicted. So again, Scientology has inconsistent rules. Masterson to keep his family in the church because the Masterson clan is so entrenched. When you look at all the friends and who they talk to, they would make an exception for Danny so that people could go see him in prison. But because he's a downstat, I think he'll do a slow fade where fewer and fewer people will see him outside of immediate family. But because David Gentile was never a real power player like a Grant Cardone, but he did have a lot of money, he did have a lot of influence, he's a different case because he's in New York. So this would be an interesting contrast conversation to have, because I've been asked by many people, do you think he'd be declared an SP? And the answer I've gotten is yes, maybe. So not knowing the lay of the land inside a flag, he's not going to, he definitely is not going to be allowed in flag. And I don't even know if they would allow him in any org right now. Long Island org, I have some pictures of it. It's like in a strip mall. Pretty miserable place. So those are all good questions, but wow, we got to see the jury verdict sheets and free ones. Yeah, they'll keep the steaming ship going indefinitely until it makes no further sense to keep it going. But yeah, why do they keep the free ones around? Well, why does Scientology do anything? You keep a money losing boat. Look, as long as it's not sinking, you can do your OT levels on it and wash the decks and pay money to do. Well, no, and actually a lot of the broker dealers, there's not really investment firms attached to Scientology per se. There's only a handful. And look, if you don't break the law, you won't be charged. Become like Stu Showerman worked with the hacker Kevin Mitnick. They had no before. They sold that company for a huge profit, and that was all legit. So I would never say all Scientologists are criminals. I would say there's a culture of criminality that's permitted. But when you get someone like Stu Showerman, who was legit, his package made sense as part of a bundle, and this was what John P. told me. It would make sense to bundle it into another suite of products and sell no before. Unfortunately, Kevin Mitnick died of pancreatic cancer shortly after they sold the company for a huge amount of money. Yeah, the inculcates need to know when to commit to. It's funny. I'm going to show you a picture of I snatched from their. Let's just go to this because speaking long. So that's it. It's staggering that they were allowed to defraud investors, and then they were convicted, and it's 108 million, rounded to 109 million dollars. That is just hard. That is so much money, and they spent it defending themselves, and they're going to go to prison for a long time, and the court's going to take that into account in sentencing. So I'm glad to see justice is done. But I just wanted to show you how much documents goes on behind the scenes. I did come on. I did something funny on my satire blog, and let's just show. I actually got a picture of Long Island, and you got to see this. And we're going to see Long Island org. This is really funny. My headline from Ken Delusion: Long Island at the center of planetary expansion. This was an actual picture inside Long Island that they published. I think it was on Facebook. But look at this schlep in the. This has loser written all over it. These are Scientology OTs meeting at the Long Island org or mission, whatever it is. Like this guy in the orange shirt cracks me up. Like he looks so uninterested. So these guys are sitting around Long Island. One's got a teddy bear. This woman has a teddy bear on her lap. I don't know if she was using it to audit or cry. I don't know. But this was an actual real picture of the Long Island org. You can see the Dianetics books, and they got the Ford Taurus parked out in front. Looks like a Ford SUV. This was published in 2014. You can see the date. And I said, led by patron Triple Scoop, Diamond Laureate Excelsius IS, and new OT8, William Big Billy Parks. The Long Island Committee is at the epicenter of planetary expansion. I made that name up. He just looked like a Triple Scoop guy. When you go in for ice cream, he would definitely be a Triple Scoop guy. And there's another picture of some Long Island people. I mean, they look bored as hell. Like that's like no interest. Grant Cardone tried to tell Jordan Belfort that no interest is actual interest. These guys look like they're in apathy or body death or no interest. But they publish these pictures. I'm glad I snagged them because they're long gone. And I said that they needed to get out of that rented crap hole they're in now. This is so funny to see, like, discouragement, failure. And they look at that food they served. It's like, I think it's pizza. So you go there to the Long Island org for a pep talk, and like they're going to take money from you, and you're miserable. Then they give you some pizza. So anyway, yeah, that's Long Island for you. Triple Scoop Platinum Meritorious with this. Yes, if you come to Flag and donate $1 million, we'll feed you all the ice cream you want. And speaking of ice cream, I have to go this since I need to ramp down. This is therapeutic for me. I scream, you scream, we all scream for Denise Duff's $97 face cream. She was selling a $97 face cream. Police report on John Doe. The day L. Ron Hubbard met me in Los Feliz. Now, where is it? I had here's Dead Communist. I'm trying to find so much stuff. What was I typing in? Oh, I know what I was looking for. I had it wrong. I was looking in the wrong place for ice cream, which that can happen. Yeah, Denise Duff's $97 face cream. Well, since we're there, let's go look at her face cream. Do I have it up? No, ice cream. I don't have it. Anyway, they were doing ice cream dating. They used those young pretties in the Sea Org to get Ephraim, and they took him on an ice cream date, if you remember that. But where did Denise go? Here it is. Yeah, let's just look at that. Now, see, this is an honest thing. She's not doing GPB Capital. So back in 2021, she was selling the overnight skin miracle in your face cream. That, like, in your face cream, that sounds kind of like porn adjacent. In your face cream. Denise, rethink that. You're on the internet. Anyway, she was selling in your face cream. And then I put a picture of her star turning bloodlust subspecies 3. So this was her $97 in-your-face cream, which was made of purified spring water, organic plant-infused oil of green tea and horse tail, excuse me, olive oil, grapeseed. Yeah, $97. I put this ad in the Amazon. This is just a shoot. Buy 2 jars of Denise Duff's In Your Face cream and receive a free Scientology basics course. But see, this is like a vanity thing. And Jenna Elfman, Rebecca Minkoff, and Chloe Feynman all wrote glowing testimonials. Oh, look, there's another video of Phoenix Part 4 where it's like getting pretty sexy there, her steamy love scene. So you can find that on my blog. But she did get Rebecca Minkoff, Jenna Elfman, and Chloe Feynman of SNL, who's funnier than hell. And she's really become one of the franchise players there, to give her. So Chloe Feynman said, when asked how my skin is so perfect, I say, I love in-your-face skincare. Game changer, thick and natural. Rebecca Minkoff. Since using in your face cream, it's given me back my glow. I am going to talk about it as much as I can. Well, Rebecca, we haven't heard you talk about it at all. Jenna Elfman exudes. This cream is so good and not full of toxic crap. I use it every day. Obsessed. Need to buy more ASAP. So after the In Your Face cream launch, it sort of went away. It just went away. Okay, well, we needed some comedic relief after such an intense look. Ooh, look at that. It's like demulsified. Yeah, it did look like it de-emulsified and deteriorated. I wonder if the secret of the face cream, of the In Your Face cream, is body thetans. If they harvest them from flag and then put them in a cream. Just a thought. Tastes great too. Yes. Thick and natural. I know it's kind of like, someone must mention the illusory oddity of facials. Okay, well, we have an island to salvage. Well, I can tell you, Long Island resident David Gentile has until October 28th to salvage any part of Long Island, assuming he's not declared. So that's it. That's how you burn through $108.8 million, and you can see the document trail that's unbelievable. And so so this is the kind of research I like doing. But at least you can see how many years it went on, the history. You can see the anatomy of a Scientology fraud. And the Church of Scientology is supposed to be so damn ethical. They never told this guy to stop doing it because you knew they sec checked him. The minute the Commonwealth of Boston filed a lawsuit, they would have had him in flag for sec checking. An ethical church would say, shut this damn thing down or we're declaring you. We don't want to be associated. But no, it was like, they probably said, what's in it for us? What's our cut? There's a VIG, right? Donate to the IS. Show us some love, Dave. You're raising 1.7 million. Show us some love because we're the most ethical group on the free ones. Yeah, they probably did put some barnacles from the free ones on the face cream because they would. Well, if you're trying to imply that I'm using a celebrity product suspiciously bright and clear, only my beautician knows for sure. That's the commercial from the 70s. Only her beautician knows for sure. So I'm not going to say whether I'm using a beauty cream because my beauty secrets must remain as more secret than the OT levels. How do you look so good for your age? Well, you'll have to spend $95.77 on my beauty cream. I'm surprised she didn't put it at $88.88 because Scientologists like eights. Please hit the like button. Yes, please hit the like and subscribe. My subscribers went down a little bit. I don't know why. They only went down like 32, but I'm going to try to do more content. Now that this criminal case is done, there's going to be a lot of fallout. So I'm going to continue to cover for the GPB Capital investors. I've spoken with many of them, and I do think the Second Circuit is going to lift the stay, and Joseph Gartemal, who's a very good man, will start distributing the money. So this will have some happy ending for the GPB Capital investors, some money back, not all of it. Now, on another thing I'm going to cover where I know part of the money went and where I think part of the money went. So with that, thank you so much for watching. Really, really glad to have you hang around. I'm glad we got to read the jury verdict sheets together, and we're going to exit. So a big win for our side. 2 criminals put away. They're not going to swindle 15,000 elderly people anymore. And I was so glad to see that happen. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time on the Scientology Money Project on YouTube.